Hello, friends and enemies, and welcome back to the channel. I am your super fluffy host, and today I will be telling you about basically the last game of D&D I played with the group I was in that had Fox and everybody in it. It was an arena game, and I was actually talked into playing it by Fox. I was actually on the verge of just kind of quitting D&D in general because life and work and all that was just getting a bit too rough to have it all together. Even though it was all play by post, I was in a lot of games at this time. So yeah, I was dropping out of most of them, the ones that actually got going. I kind of hated doing that, but I didn't really have a whole lot of a choice. But yeah, I got talked into doing an arena game by Fox, and I made a kind of generic fightery character. It was a crusader, I think, from Tome of Battle. This was still way back in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, whatever. And yeah, I actually did decently enough initially. I think my little fighter crusader guy won almost every single one of his games. However, I was told as it went on that if I was going to continue playing, I really needed to make a magic using class or something like that, because the character I had was just way too weak. And admittedly, there were people on there that were they had very, very broken builds. I mean, in this thing, you could have basically any book. Actually, I think it's like every book. You could use every book, and it was there was some crazy stuff. It was all point by though, but still. And like one person had two characters. One character was this crazy melee. It was a werewolf. Yeah, it was a crazy melee werewolf thing that had like single digit health somehow, because his charisma was or constitution was so low. But the thing is, he had like a 10-foot reach on melee attacks and was doing like at level like 3 or 4 or something like that, was doing almost 100 damage a turn. So needless to say, it's kind of crazy. And his other character was a ranged character that was virtually the same thing, only with ranged attacks. But they could only like use normal ranged thrown weapons or something like that. Hulking thrower or something like that, probably. I don't remember. But still, like 100 damage a turn at level 4 or 5. And it was obnoxious, I guess. But anyway, so I made a generic kobold sorcerer. They were just gonna throw fireballs. Now, granted, I did end up upgrading them to this one prestige class that was like turn their spells into rays or something. But still, it was a fairly normal sorcerer. I lost half the games initially until the build really sort of got going. And oh boy. So this was, an anything goes, that sort of thing. Started out pretty normally. And then, like, just one-on-one fights and all that. And then suddenly, for some reason, like, the guy with the broken characters won every single one of his matches. Like, at one point, like, 2 people would go up against one of his characters, and they would lose. And for some reason, the guy in charge decided, you know what? I'm going to send your kobold up against both of his characters. Which, either one of his characters, if they hit, automatically won. There was some structures and stuff between our characters, but still, even with all the buffing I could do, like all his werewolf had to do was get into 10 feet, and it was automatically over. So, yeah, I've had my little terrified sorcerer going up against these 2 hulking beasts of characters. And he played poorly. Like, I'd watched most of the matches because, it's play by post. You can just poke in and read what's happening. And he brute forced his way through a lot of the times because it's just, I get close enough, I attack, I win, that sort of thing. Except for the throwing character, which was just, I throw, I win. But still, he played decently smart, I guess. This time, for some reason, he didn't. There were obstacles between our characters. So what does he do? He has his werewolf come running after my kobold, and then just stops 15 feet away. Like, I'm about to take my turn when I'm stopped by everyone. Like, everyone pops into this and starts talking to him, asking him if he's sure this is what he wants to do, confirming with him, and just interrupting the whole thing until the GM basically tells everybody to shut up. But yes, he is sure he wants to stop 15 feet away from my kobold, because he is untouchable in combat. And I'm just like, okay, well, what's your character's touch AC? Yeah, his nigh unkillable, but single-digit glass cannon health character basically had no touch AC. How no one had exploited this yet, I don't know. But yeah, basically rolling anything would have been a hit. And I hit. And because his health was so low, it killed him. And he is very upset at this. Because I guess he maybe expected me to walk up and try to stab him? It was absurd. And I mean, I'm not complaining. I took down what was possibly the second most powerful character in the entire arena with my terrified little kobold that had probably lost more than they had won. And now all that was left was his throwing character with javelins or whatever. And of course I had protection from arrows on, which protected me from like normal non-magical arrows or thrown weapons, and all of their thrown weapons were non-magical. So they just had their character stand there, not trying to break line of sight, not trying to wait for the spell to wear off or anything. No, they just stand there, constantly throwing javelins, which can't hit. And then they have no touch AC either. I hit them with a spell, and I won. The two most powerful characters in the game, or characters in the arena, and I beat both of them at the same time. I'm ecstatic. I mean, everybody's cheering me on. This is just the craziest thing ever. I'm happy because the fact that my little kobold won just blows my mind completely. And so I'm feeling good. I'm riding pretty high. Log into the forum the next day to check the game. And there was a huge post by this guy. Multiple posts by this guy. Where he is rage quitting this arena. And he is blaming my character for it. Because apparently my kobold, which is just hits on touch AC basically, it's completely broken, unfair, unfun, and destroys any fair competition in this game. Which, as a note, at this point, I'm like a level 5 kobold, or kobold sorcerer. I think I'd taken one level in rogue for the prestige class I was going to be taking, but that's it. There's nothing exciting about my character. There's nothing impressive about my character. They don't do hundreds of damage a minute, or a turn, I guess. They don't, phase through existence. No, they don't cast a spell that just deletes your character sheet, or whatever insanity. But no, my kobold is apparently unfun and ruining the game, and he rage quits. Suddenly, excited over my win, I feel kind of bad. I mean, I know it's weird to feel kind of bad when this guy had the characters that he had, but still, it's like, I didn't mean to make you rage quit. Why did you play so poorly? I mean, there was plenty of obstacles between our characters. He easily could have kept line of sight closed, got in, and killed my character in a single turn. But no, he just stood out in the open and then died. And then rage quits over it. And this was sort of a... From this point on, my Kobold basically won every single match they were in. Like, my poor little Crusader, who had won every match that he was in before then, just started getting his butt kicked by everything. And like, later on, I replaced him at like level 9 or 10 or something like that with another character that was sort of had this whole battle mage thing going on. And very nearly with a battle mage with a familiar that could like use a melee weapon. That was the whole thing I had going on with it. And his very first match was against a character that was like an anti-magic grappler who just had a staff of anti-magic field and then was to go up and grapple everyone to death. And I nearly beat him thanks to just an absurd number of critical hits from my familiar. Like, he was down to single-digit HP by the time he won. Like, my actual character never got to do a single thing because they were grappled. And it was all the animal familiar, the familiar, doing all the hard work. So, I think I played a couple more matches with him and he did okay enough. But yeah, so my sorcerer was pretty much the main attraction. People were wanting to challenge my sorcerer to take on the arena's champion, which I don't know how they got called the arena champion, but hey, and I basically won every match. It came down to the point where between each match, we had our own little section of the forum where we could write down what we're buying or replacing or whatever, our levels up, etc. So it came to the point where the GM just started deleting stuff on my side. Like, I would say, I'm going to buy this, this, and this, and then he would edit my post and remove stuff, or just delete the post and say, oh, sorry, something must have happened to the forums, but you don't have that now. I was still winning, but it was kind of annoying. And then it came down to this one other guy, Fox, actually, who had an artificer, which was completely and utterly broken. Like, people were like, oh, your sorcerer is so powerful. No, my sorcerer couldn't do a thing against this guy. Like, the 2 times I fought him, actually, technically, I nearly won both times, but still, I lost both times I fought him. And like, it was going to be the ultimate challenge. My Kobold and the anti-magic grappler up against, the artificer. And I'm talking to the guy playing the anti-magic grappler. And I say, okay, I've got a plan. I'm pretty sure we can take him down. But here's what I need you to do. And he says, no, screw you. I'm going to win by myself. Turns on his anti-magic field, runs into the middle of the arena, and then stands there doing nothing. And then gets killed by the artificer because the artificer has spells. There's a couple of spells that go through anti-magic fields and just hits him with those. And that's it. I'm head desking, face palming everything. Because he starts complaining nonstop about how, BS that was, that he didn't even get into range or whatever, despite the fact that he ran into the open despite having cover. And then I do a little bit of damage, but my Kobold goes down. This guy has a second character, which was like a dragon shaman or something. And he tried every trick in the book to try to defeat my Kobold. Like, you couldn't challenge someone like 2 times in a row. They had to do another match. But every time I got out of a match, he was challenging me to a fight and losing. Because he was always doing like the same thing. He would switch it up a little bit, but it was still basically the same thing. And I would just basically go, well, I cast Ray. Oh, I won. Because you were doing the same exact thing you did last time. I'm doing fire damage. Fire is like the only type of damage I can do. No one buys anything to grant immunity to fire damage, despite the fact that it wouldn't be too expensive. And yeah, after this, like, that guy rage quits. And again, he points at me as being the problem. My poor Kobold that only does fire damage. That literally, if you were invisible, which all of his characters had like the way to do that, well, except for the anti-magic grappler, because anti-magic field and all that. But like, he would just go stand in one spot and then cast spells at me. And it's like, okay, well, you spent your buffing turns not buffing because, occasionally we'd have turns to buff. And he had plenty of buffs to use on his multiple characters. He would never use them. He would just, I don't know, willpower me to death or something. And so he would lose because he just stands in the open and doesn't do anything to try to counter my character other than throwing random attacks in their direction. The weird thing is, all these people, all of them that I went up against that rage quit, when I looked at their other games, they played smart. They didn't just stand in the middle of the arena and get shot. They would use cover. They would buff. They would do all sorts of things. They would use illusions. When they go up against my character, they're just, I stand in the middle and get shot and lose and complain. What happened to all your strategy? Did your brain melt? Is it on, did someone borrow your brain cells? Is that one of those situations where you and a friend only have 2 brain cells between you and you gave them to them for this match? I just don't understand it. The anti-magic grappler guy only lost to me and the artificer. And every time he'd go up against me, he would just stand in the middle of the arena. Okay, hey, the anti-magic field is settled on the staff. I'm floating in the air or whatever. Just throw the staff at me. How hard is that? The anti-magic field hits me, I lose all my buffs, splat. But no, he just stands there and shakes his fist angrily, and yeah, he rage quit, pointed the finger at me as being unfair and unfun and overpowered, and then the game basically died after this because no one wanted to fight my character now because they were worried that, well, he's so overpowered he'll lose. I was like, well, I've got another character. No, he's probably overpowered too. And it's just, yeah, this was the last game of D&D I basically played, and it involved everyone rage quitting and being upset at me for making a generic sorcerer that casts fire at everything with people who refuse to take any sort of fire protection. A potion of fire protection. No, they wouldn't take that. Rings, cloaks, whatever, anything to give them fire protection. I cannot do anything to you if you resist my fire. Nobody would do anything to resist fire while constantly trying to fight me despite the fact that I'm casting fire. But yeah, that was my last game of D&D. An arena battle that ended with everyone rage quitting and being upset at me. And not the artificer. That was the real true overpowered character. Those people who I said would stand there and do nothing and get shot by my character, they would try tactics against this guy. It didn't work. At one point, everyone went up against this guy's character except for me and lost. But no, he's not the problem. It's my Kobold Sorcerer. Yeah, that was my last experience with D&D for, wow, probably a few years, actually. Which, yep, that's pretty much it. The next little video I'm going to do is about Pathfinder. A little bit of 4th edition, but mostly Pathfinder. And how this is what actually brought an end to me playing D&D with this group. I'll probably make a post after that about a few little random games that I'd gotten into that didn't really go anywhere. Although I did do that earlier, but the next section after these will be on the next group I was in. I've sort of debated it because, well, I did play a few games with them, and this was a dedicated group. They had their own chat forum and everything, and at one point there's over 100 people. But weirdly, I don't remember any of the games I actually played because of one person. But yeah, that'll probably be after the Pathfinder thing. It'll probably be that. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy, be sure to comment on the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I shall see you all again later.